Good evening. This is the call to order for the Instruction and Support Service Committee. Today is October 9th, it's 5 p.m. It's 5:05 p.m. and we're here at City Hall. In attendance, I'm Jennifer Perez, the chair of the committee. We have committee members Willie Medina in person. And online, we have Andre Woodson. We have board members Albert Benahan online. Joseph Palovic in person. Okay. And now we'll get started. First item on the agenda is the approval of meeting minutes from May 21st, 2024. Do you have a motion to approve those minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes for May 21st, 2024.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Right, all in favor for approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. All right, the next item is approval of meeting minutes from September 11th, 2024. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for September 11, 2024.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, you're aye. Okay. All right, those minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is discussion on an update on special education, and Ms. McKinley is going to present on that.
Good evening. I'm going to start with our special education vision statement. Our vision is to empower students with diverse learning needs by providing a supportive and inclusive environment. We strive to foster academic, social, and emotional growth through individualized instruction, collaboration with families and communities, and the promotion of self-advocacy. Our commitment is to ensure that every student achieves their fullest potential and is prepared for post-secondary outcomes and success. The purpose of the monthly updates is to just kind of give a current status of the Bridgeport Public Schools Special Education Department. We realize that we're facing significant challenges that are impacting both our students, staff, parents, and community. These challenges range from staff vacancies, programming that leads to out-of-district placements, supplemental instructional materials, assistive technology, sensory settings and materials, and an increase of students with autism. But tonight's focus, just want to kind of look at our current status is we are based on our CTSAS, which is our Special Education Data Management Program. We have a little over 4,100 students that are identified as requiring special education services. 1,476 of those students have a specific learning disability, and this is primarily in the broad areas of reading or math. And then our next largest population are students with autism, 658 students. And then our students with other health impairment, attention deficit disorder. And those are primarily our students with the OHI and as well as the autism spectrum disorder, or our students that are also being provided services primarily in self-contained programs. And then our students with ED, which is emotionally disturbance, those are also our students that will be served primarily in self-contained programs. When I speak of our self-contained programs, we have RISE programs, which serves students K through 12th grade, well, actually pre-K through 12th grade. We have 45 programs at 18 campuses. Those classrooms normally right now are running 12 to 14 students, primarily students with autism, and that is a large number for that class ratio. And there's one teacher and two paraprofessionals that are typically allocated to that classroom. Then we have SOAR programs, which primarily serve our students with behavior challenges. SOAR provides services for students kinder through 8th grade, 10 programs at 4 campuses with a student allocation right now of 10 to 12 students. And those are our students with ED or OHI. And there's 1 teacher and 2 paraprofessionals in that classroom as well. In our AIM programs, those are for students 9th through 12th grade, which those are students who still need support that they were in the SOAR program at the lower grades. We have 6 programs at 3 campuses, serving primarily 12 to 14 students per class, with 1 teacher, 2 paraprofessionals. And then our LEAP programs, K through 12th grade, 25 programs at 8 campuses, 10 to 12 students are in those classes as well, with 1 teacher, 2 paraprofessional. And LEAP is for our students receiving functional academics. They still, all of our students still have an opportunity to participate in general education, either through specials, recess, or other opportunities with their non-disabled peers. And then we have LEAP Medically Fragile, which is, these are our students which primarily have multiple disabilities, significant cognitive and physical disabilities, 3 programs at 2 campuses, 10 students are primarily in these classes with 1 teacher and 2 paraprofessionals. And then we have Bridgeport Learning Center, which provides services to students with a variety of disabilities. And we are currently using Bridgeport Learning Center as a bridge to keep students from going to out-of-district placements, as well as students transitioning back into the district who may not be quite ready to go fully back to the campus. We're using Bridgeport Learning Center as truly a bridge for those students. Last week, we met within our department and kind of did an activity of identifying top 5 priorities. And then I took those priorities and kind of put them into broad categories. And you have child find, intervention, evaluation. Concerns are the MTSS data and collaboration with academics. Needing to do that more before we evaluate students and identifying them as requiring special education services or being eligible for special education. Looking at Tier 1 instruction and how we can provide more support for students at the Tier 1 level. And then just ensuring that there's equity in our evaluations and evaluation instruments. Many of our teachers provide the evaluation for students and wanting to make sure that they receive the proper training to administer those assessments, and that when we are evaluating students, that we're completing a full and individual evaluation, that we're looking at all areas that we suspect that a child may have a disability. Then there's IEP development, IEP implementation, and FAPE, free appropriate public education, and just ensuring that there's alignment between the students' strengths and their weaknesses to develop the goals and to identify the needed services. Looking at service recommendations, what data are we using to identify how much a student needs to be really removed from the general education classroom? What data are we using to identify the accommodations and the specific services that they require, the specialized services as well? And just the quality of our present levels of academic achievement and functional performance and goals, and the impact statement, so that when we provide this information to anyone who's going to work with that student, that they're getting a full and clear picture of that student, their strengths, their weaknesses, and specifically what they need and the level of support that they're going to need in the classroom. Looking at transportation, there's a concern as to how we identify students requiring specialized transportation. One-to-one paraprofessional request, same with that we are using data to make these decisions. And looking at transition planning and services. When we identify students initially in special education, that we make sure that we are beginning with the end in mind, that we are communicating to parents, what is it, your expectation the day that this child no longer comes into the public school setting, so that we're making sure that our students have the skill set, whether it is to go on to post-secondary education college, or whether it is to be ready for the workforce, or even to help parents whose child may not be able to go into employability, but what are the resources here in Bridgeport or other local surrounding areas that parents will have access to for their student. And least restrictive environment, ensuring instructional support for our multilingual students, looking at out-of-district placements, data-driven services, support for special and general education teachers, whether that's through professional development, and whether it is modeling or doing observations in the classroom. What support do we need to provide our teachers, especially like our teachers who are providing instruction to students with autism, ensuring that they have that knowledge base of just the basic skills of how to work with our students with autism or behavior challenges and any type of neuro diversity disability that students may have. Instructional strategies and curriculum. We're finding that there was curriculum that was ordered for, special education, and we're trying to locate where that is before we identify that any additional curriculum is needed. And even the equity across the board as far as research-based reading programs. We know that many of our students struggle to read, but ensuring that those programs and services are available at all of our campuses and not just at some. And then transition assessment tools for us to be able to help students to identify what it is that they want to do after they graduate from high school, and to ensure that we are developing the goals and objectives to help them reach those goals. And then even looking at our current transition program that is in place and working with them to identify that we are creating a work-based or an internship program for the students to be able to transition from the skills that they are learning in the transition program, which is for our 18 to 22-year-olds, that they are then able to transition into a program that's within our community. Then looking at teachers and staff, we are very well aware of the vacancies and the struggle to have the vacancies filled, and looking at what can we do as far as recruitment, training, and retention of teachers. We did have someone that attended University of Connecticut, just drew a blank, job fair today. And so looking at any prospects and how can we recruit them to Bridgeport and then provide them that support in order to keep them here. Looking at cultural responsiveness and education for our multilingual learners, and that our teachers are prepared to be able to provide them with the appropriate instruction that's going to address their cultural needs. Professional development plan, we've identified that not just our teachers, but our speech language pathologists, our evaluators, that they also need professional development that's directly related to their expertise in their field. Reviewing caseloads and student staff ratio, they are high. But just looking at, we can take the number of total students that we have in special education, divide that by 20 to 25, and come up with a set number for teacher. But that's not going to generally fit everywhere. So clearly looking at each campus, each program, and identifying what would be an appropriate student to teacher ratio for our RISE classrooms, for our SOAR classrooms, as well as for our resource inclusion teachers as well. And then enhancing strategic collaboration with working very closely with academics. Because many of our students still have access. They start out as general education students and remain general education students, even when we identify them for special education. So making sure that we are working closely with academics to be able to allow our students to continue to access the general education setting. Cross-training and capacity building with clerical staff and with all of our staff. We have supervisors that provide support for out-of-district placements. And we also have in-district supervisors, but making sure that both kind of know what the other does, so that if there is someone that has to go out on leave or they leave, that someone can pick up that caseload until we hire someone. And then just the equity in roles and responsibilities for our out-of-district and in-district supervisors. And everything in special education is driven by data. So looking more at our data to make decisions that's in the classroom, as well as just data across the board, especially for student performance. How are our students receiving special education services performing in comparison to their peers without disabilities? And looking at our data management system, and are we putting in quality information to be able to get quality reports in return? And developing a procedural manual with specific systems for policies, procedures, and practices. A lot of the things that are currently in place is verbal. It's not written, but making sure that we transfer what we're saying and asking teachers to do to actually developing a policy and procedural manual. And all of that too will become effective with monitoring compliance. The work has already started. As you can see, we're doing some analyzing of the overall program, breaking that down into smaller pieces, looking at our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities for growth, and then those things that may be barriers or threats. And how can we take all of that and continue to build a quality program for special education for Bridgeport Public Schools. And then the strategic planning, we're meeting in small groups within the department, as well as our whole department meets, but also starting to reach out to teachers and to build stakeholder groups with our teachers to hear from them, and parents as well. And then continue to develop small action plans to where we're taking this into phases and not trying to do everything all at once, but then truly prioritizing and working on everything in phases. And on the next couple of slides, just sources of evidence to show that we are doing what we say that we're going to do, such as the actual operating procedures, that we continue with everything that we do, going back to our vision statement as well as the mission statement of the district, documenting our recruitment and retention efforts. We know right now that many of our teachers are picking up caseloads to help with PPT meetings, and we're working closely with BEA and CEA to come up with an agreement to be able to compensate the teachers for that additional caseload. And then the classroom observations, solely with special education, also in collaboration with academics. PPT checklist that we can gather data that we can use in order to develop our ESY program, in order to also look at the caseloads for our teachers as well. As far as assistive technology, I've been talking to Dr. Avery just about some of the things that we're needing. Met with, I think it was an administrator and our director of speech language pathology earlier this week, and talking about sensory classrooms. Our students with neurodiverse learning needs, and that's primarily our students with OHI, attention deficit, and our students with autism. They've got to be able to move. They've got to be able to have, for some, it is about movement, but for some, it's weighted blankets. It is pencil grips. Just making sure that we have our sensory menu available for our occupational therapists to be able to access, and that teachers and administrators are aware of those supplementary aids and services as well. And then interagency agreements or service contracts with community or adult service agencies. Again, all of our students are not necessarily going to go to the military, or they're not going to go directly to college or even employment, but making sure that when they leave Bridgeport Public Schools, that we're not graduating them just to be at home. But there are other services that their parents can access. And again, we understand that there's a lot of work to be done, but I have an awesome team that's working with me, and look forward to continue to bring updates each month.
Thank you. Any of the committee members right now have any questions regarding Mr. Kinley's presentation?
When you look at your overview, or I don't know what page you have the data on, the overview, you said the RISE program K to 12th grade, 45 programs and 18 campuses. When you say 85 programs, I want to make sure I understand. Is that
45.
45 programs and 18 campuses? When you say 45 programs, are those classrooms? 45 classrooms?
Yes, 45 classrooms.
Thank you. That's for everything in one of them, so I just couldn't put that up here.
Okay.
Now, when you speak about the ratio, 12 to 14 students that stay one the RISE program K to 12th grade, then you say one teacher and two paraprofessionals. Is that what's active right now in each of those classrooms?
So that is the allocation, and I will say that there is one campus that we are working on that they were not allocated one additional paraprofessional, and we're working with that principal. I don't know how it wasn't allocated, but typically, yes, one
Yes,
teacher,
it is.
2 paraprofessionals.
And all classrooms have that. Are those certified, or those are being run by, like, well, last time I was deceived, so I understand that Kelly Services cannot be providing these teachers and pairs for SPED, so I guess it's Delta T, as I learned. So are those part of those services, or just want to make sure I understand what's out there right now in our district?
It's both. We
It's both.
do have certified teachers in some of the classrooms, and we have long-term subs and paraprofessionals through Kelly and Delta T in some as well.
On the page that we're getting on. Again, back to those ratios that you had in every single category, rise, soar, aim, and leap. You got here ratios, meaning 12 to 14 students in that classroom, 10 to 12 in another, 12 to 14, 10 to 12. But then later on in your top priorities, you were trying to identify what are those ratios. So do we know those ratios, or we're trying to figure that out now? Because according to this, you're giving me ratios, and then after you say we're trying to figure that out.
So those are the ratios that were set when I came in. Just from professional background and experience, especially for a classroom with 12 to 14 students with autism, that's high. So what we're doing is assessing, do we need to adjust these ratios? So that's where I was saying analyzing on the page right now. The 12 to 14 is what you will find in a classroom. You will
Rise.
Yes, there may be one classroom that's at 9, maybe 10 students, but you're typically going to find 12 to 14. The same thing in our SOAR. You're typically going to find 10 to 12 students. And what's listed under the overview is what you will find now. What's listed in more of the analysis is what we're doing to look at, is this appropriate? Do we need to reduce the number of students with this teacher ratio of 1 and 2, or do we need to increase the staff? And even with 12 to 14 students, increasing the staff, I wouldn't say that that's best practice. So really looking at bringing those numbers down to being more manageable numbers as far as a cap for what should be in those classes.
I'll come back.
Mr. Woodson, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Mrs. Cowlick?
Yes, a few. Last week we discussed how many last month compensatory hours, IEP backlogs. What's been moving on those?
So I have my executive director that's working with the supervisors and campus administrators on the compensatory services. So I apologize, we do not have that information for you today. As the compliance backlog, when I looked at CT SEDS, we are 98% compliant with our PBTs and 2% non-compliant.
Any open complaints? I think it was
Yes.
5 last time.
Yes, so we have 0 state complaints at this time, 4 mediation requests, and 1 due process hearing.
Okay. A question on the PPT evaluation. PPT evaluation. Yeah, the placement decision evaluation thing. What exactly are they going to be evaluating? They're going to be questioning of the PPT team's decisions, critiques, because that has gotten dicey in the past, especially the financial issues the district's facing are one of the biggest cost drivers. Oftentimes, finance directors in the past, there was pressure brought on the staff to bring those costs down, and she actually put us in a big mess before. And I don't really want to see a big mess like that again, where PPT decisions are being questioned and critiqued. And even if they're not being overturned, the staff conducting these PPTs are feeling a certain kind of pressure to perform a certain way.
So can you tell me specifically which page that
That would be
which heading?
sources of evidence, midway down, internal monitoring.
Okay.
monitoring system used to evaluate placement decisions.
Okay, and you said which one, the
The
PPT
PPT's checklist.
checklist? So, even with, CT says, like, you can't finalize the document unless everything is green. So, and also one of the things that we are realizing, like today, we had a discussion. So for students who require a registered behavior tech, we can't, there's not a report that we can run to be able to tell us who requires a registered behavior tech. So what we're doing is trying to find where in CT says we can consistently, everyone put this in the same place so that our IEP compliance specialist can find that easily. Because what happens is if that information is not given to my office, then we may not allocate that personnel. And then we're in that cycle of having to determine what does it look like for a student to have compensatory services. Or if we miss that for a full year, that could easily become a complaint, mediation, or due process hearing. The same thing with even the one-to-one paraprofessional. We have a system, but we want to make sure that we're being clear about the system and that we're actually giving better guidance with the data, because again, everything that we should be doing with special education should be driven by data. So if a student requires a one-to-one paraprofessional, that we have a system of, providing observations, that we're meeting with the campus to ensure that there's not additional behavior support that we can provide from the BCBA or a psychologist or a social worker before we move to providing a one-to-one paraprofessional. Because another thing that we're seeing is that when we provide a one-to-one paraprofessional, we don't start phasing it out. And typically, if that individual stays with that student, that's not something that they're going to see long-term post-secondary. So we want to make sure that even when we are identifying that a student needs a one-to-one, that we're developing goals and objectives. So once again, as a district, we can determine, is this individual working? And we don't want the student to become too dependent on that individual. So making sure that those goals and objectives address how to truly change the behavior that's causing that student to require that one-to-one. Because I know that if a request for a one-to-one comes to me and it's already in the PPT, I should not override that. So I know that. So that's not what the checklist is for. It's also helping our teachers to be able to complete the PPT and the IEP process so that they're not having the frustrations at the end that all of their boxes are green. We're getting the information that we need, and also some of the stress is relieved off of them.
Okay, just the one point of confusion. It sounds what you're describing is evaluating the data input and the implementation, not the decision itself that goes into the plan.
Yeah. So again, the checklist is like a step, making sure that, for instance, that anyone that decides that a student needs a specific service, that we need to collect that data, we need it in this area. So again, if a student requires an RBT on that checklist, it may be that RBT or one-to-one or adult support was documented and checked. As a teacher, I'm making sure that that was completed, or as the administrator, I'm making sure that that was completed. If there is information that the administrator needs to transfer to the Office of Special Education, that is carried through as well. It's almost trying to help to formulate a better communication system for more effective PPT meetings and outcomes.
Thank you. And final question, I don't know, this might be just a little pet peeve or whatever. The SWOT acronym. Is that standard?
Yes.
I don't like the word. I particularly don't like that word, direct.
I knew you added barriers.
Barriers, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
May I add? I think one of the most important pieces that we have to do with special education in this district is that we have to set up protocols and processes that every campus has to utilize. It's been willy-nilly. Everybody's doing it differently. Everybody's approving things differently. So we have to have systematic ways to be able to look at the PPT. And the PPT, the administrator is supposed to require and make the decision on what's going to be allocated. But if you don't do that with the data to be able to say, elementary campus, high school campus, everybody's going to go through, they'll do a PPT, but the process has to be the same across the board, consistent. We're not doing that. So one of the things that I'm working with Michelle in Specialized Services to do is to set these things together in order for us to work through it. So you have to analyze, you have to try things and things may not work and work through that and have a deeper conversation. We're also looking at other districts around us. What are they doing? Some districts do special ed really, really well. And so why are we reinventing the processes? Take what they had, modify it to our needs and make it and implement it. So we try to expedite things faster than what we've done before in the past. So it's a huge void in special ed in this district, and we have to get to the heart of the program to make it better. And so we're going to expedite some things. We're going to try some things. We're going to try to make sure that we educate our families about how to do it, educate our teachers. And because of the teacher shortage, we're getting teachers that are in our special programs. They're getting training with us for a little bit. They got the experience, and now I'm going to make $15,000, $20,000 more across another district. So it's just really making sure that we lessen the load, the workload, because it's overwhelming. Because PPT, documentation, getting the data that they need to make the decision, all those factors. We're working with the union to try to do some MOUs to help our current teachers, pay them a little bit more to do more of the work. It's just, and then when you're talking about compensatory, payments for us not providing those services, that's when the price tag goes up. Because if we don't have that certified teacher in that classroom, the other certified teacher, you may have one or two in a building, and we're missing 3 or 4 teachers in the building. They have to play catch up, and we have to give them compensation to be able to get us back into compliance. Because every single special ed kid in the district, if they have an IEP, we're as a district, we guarantee them that we're going to give them a free appropriate education. And when we don't provide it, and we have a substitute or a non-certified person in there, we have to give them those services back again. So that is the biggest challenge that we're facing, to be able to kind of calculate the missed time that these kids don't have with a certified teacher. That is huge. And we deal with that every single day, and it's constant. So we're trying to do some things. We're going to keep you guys connected with everything about we do. I think every month we're bringing this piece back to you. So ask your questions. And it's important for us to make sure that we dig deeper. You talking to families. If the families are telling you things, bring it back to us. Let us kind of figure out what we need to do. We're willing and able and open to having those deeper conversations, because we don't know everything, because we're not in every single campus every single day. So what you're hearing, we may be able to take that and be able to utilize it to get with our leaders to make a better decision on things. So that's important.
Thank you.
Mr. Benham, do you have any questions on the rest?
No question. Thank you.
Mr. Medina?
I'm glad you brought that to the table, because you said you want to hear it, and to respect, you're going to hear it. So definitely we need to check up on a couple things. Those sensory items that you were speaking about, for those, yes, those resource people. And those sensory items also do in the classrooms also, in those, classrooms, also those objects need to be also in the classrooms?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so let me, because you said it with them to have, to tell the teacher that they had those resources, and I thought, wait a minute, those resources are supposed to be in the classroom. There's definitely a school that I need you to go look at. Okay, Will Cross. Whenever you want to do a tour, I'm available this week. I can cancel things. I can get off of work. Let's go there as soon as possible because there are issues over there that parents are going. There's already people knocking on doors, unfortunately, unbeknownst to me. For my thing, I always rather go to you guys, but they're going to think I would never stop any parent or organization from advocating for themselves. But I tell them, give us a chance. I'd rather work the process thing. And another point that you mentioned, it was clear to me completely, because we're going to be spending. So we're either going to spend twice on resolving the issue or trying to fix the issue, or we're just going to apply the funds into the teachers. And that's what somebody and I was communicating before. It's like, we're either going to get these teachers and pay them what we need to pay them to get them in the district, or we're going to pay for, because we're missing services, and then we're still going to pay again. So again, we need the data. For that, we can try to find out how to go advocate, walk with the up to Hartford, walk over to the mayor, walk over to wherever we need to do, because we need to get this needs to be done to me ASAP. I just need information to help you guys, help me, help these students, because some people are kind of like in a position they don't want to hear what's going on with the board. They don't want to hear what's going on with the board and the superintendent. They don't want to hear what's going on in between. They hear about, oh, yes, you got it. The student. They should not be a collateral damage to anything that's going on. And I have a wonderful teacher in that district. I'm trying to find that home out of this word, and I'll use it later. But definitely because we need to find out. It's just, and when we're finding out that there's not even a teacher there, that resources people, Thomas Hooker is another one. The superintendent is the one that mentioned Wilbur Cross. That way you guys know. Thomas Hooker is another one. And again, and if we can walk in there with you guys to really get the thing, I have some other men that are going to want to meet with us. But again, it's just, I think there's no certified teacher. When we talk about certified teachers and or Delta teacher, I hear that there's none over there. That just blew my mind, that there's zero.
At Cross or?
Yes. Cross.
So at Cross, I actually happened to talk to the principal before the meeting. So she has a long-term sub through Kelly that is currently in.
I just,
Again.
you just gave me a heart attack. I'm sorry.
Let her finish.
I hear you, but that was a heart attack. I'll let you finish.
So at Cross, we're waiting on Kelly to release a teacher that is an individual that is currently in pre-K to go to the RISE classroom. Now, is she a certified special education teacher? I seriously doubt it, because then we would be hiring her directly. When that individual is released from Kelly to go from the pre-K to the RISE classroom, then we're going to need someone for the pre-K classroom. So currently there is a para that is in that classroom who will be certified in November. So we need a teacher or a long-term sub through November, because when the para that's currently there becomes certified in November, the principal is going to hire her. So the principal has a handle on it, on specifically the RISE classroom and that pre-K special education classroom. If there are other concerns, when I spoke to her, I wasn't aware. And then the only other thing that we talked about was what we're doing with all of our RISE classrooms, is ensuring that, the design and the setup, that they have the appropriate furniture and materials that they need in those classrooms.
There's a gentleman that wants to meet. I was going to send you guys an email as soon as he gets clear his schedule, that I can tell you guys I'm going to go in with him. But yeah, that was another issue that he brought up, that is saying that there's no furniture. And I knew that prior situation with the classroom.
Is that Cross or at Hooker?
Cross, because there was a prior situation when there were students sent over there, and then they were gonna be sent to Skane, and then Skane wasn't gonna work out for multiple reasons, and then we sent it over to Columbus. And when you look at that, the Columbus classroom, compared to what they had in Wilbur Cross, because I was there one day, you're talking about a state-of-the-art classroom compared to a complete dump.
Okay.
And
I'm willing to go back because
Gee,
at,
to that point.
Columbus is the other pre-K special ed classroom that we set up. We utilized the furniture that was already at Columbus because Columbus had just gotten furniture refreshed within the last 2 to 3 years. So we just used that furniture. And
But
so we didn't,
classrooms that were coming from Cross.
they were already gonna be used, that furniture that was gonna be there. We have new furniture coming in and it should be in, if it's not already in, then I can also divert back over to that new Rice classroom at Wilbur Cross. I will take care of that. That shouldn't be an issue. It's in, I think it's either gonna be what's going to storage or in storage, but I'll take care of that request. And talk with George with that. I know Thomas Hooker, that pre-K classroom also got new furniture or will be getting new furniture. That's taken care of. Other than that, you said Thomas Hooker, I'm like, okay, he's talking
That's my
about.
district,
I get
city
it.
council people would call me because they get called and they call me, it's like, well, I got a board member that is in our district, let me call him.
I'll work on those too. Those are already on our Georgian's agenda to address on the furniture side. So I just put my eyes on it, and I haven't done that yet. So I'll do that before Friday. Put my eyes on both classrooms and making sure it's taken care of for you.
I look forward to that thing, it's for the walk. Oh, I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Kenrick.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, next we have a update on academics from Ms. Richardson.
So recently I had the opportunity to meet with Jennifer Perez to talk about some
She was like, that's me.
to talk about some of the priorities for academics, but also to address some of the concerns that she was hearing in the community, and to be able to speak to those as the chief academic officer. One of the things that came out of that meeting is the assessments that we have to take here in Bridgeport. Which one of those assessments is federally mandated assessments, and which of those assessments are state assessments. So I'm going to take you one subject area at a time. For math, the state assessment that we take is the SBAC assessment, and that is required by the state of Connecticut. But we also have to give a universal screener that drives the MTSS or RTI process, which is response to intervention, where we're identifying students who are struggling and in need of some additional supports before they are referred to special education for testing. And that's a federally required assessment that you have to give 3 times a year, once at the beginning of the year, once in the middle of the year, and once at the end of the year. For math, we are given the NWEA assessment. We were giving the growth measure assessment from HMH, but the company HMH switched over to NWEA. So it was not a district decision to go from the HMH growth measure assessment to NWEA. We were required to do so because the vendor switched the assessment that they give. And then, of course, the Tier 1 instructional material that we use for mathematics is HMH. and the tier 2 and tier 3 instructional material that we use is Dreambox. And all of those things were present in Bridgeport when I arrived here. So then if we move over to English language arts, the state assessment that we give for English language arts is SBAC, and that's required by the state of Connecticut. The federal assessment or universal screener that we actually give to students in grades K through 6. They take DIBELS. Pre-K students take Brigance. And students in grades 7 through 12 take Reading Plus. And again, we have to use that data to create intervention plans for students, and we have to implement those intervention plans over a period of time, preferably before the student is referred for special education testing. The tier 1 instructional products that we use for ELA, for pre-K, we use World of Wonders. For grades K through 6, we use Wonders, and the license for Wonders expires in 2025. So all kindergarten through 6th grade students, we're either going to have to renew Wonders or we're going to have to begin the curriculum vetting process to determine a different curriculum that we're going to use. But whatever curriculum we use, it has to be based in the science of reading, and that is a Connecticut law. It is a Connecticut requirement. In grades 7 through 8, we use Study Sync. And in grades 9 through 12, we use Lenses on Literature. And the only new curriculum that we're using is Lenses on Literature. The rest of those products were in place when I arrived in Bridgeport. And we only purchased one for 9 through 12 because there was nothing in place at all. So the myth is that 9 through 12 was supposed to be using active learning, and that is not a tier 1 product. That is a supplemental product that you can utilize primarily for informational text, but it does have other types of text in it as well. But that is not a curriculum. That is a supplemental material that you can use in addition to a curriculum. The tier 2 and tier 3 products that we use for ELA in grades K through 6, we use Lexia. In grades 7 through 12, we use Reading Plus. And we have to have some type of product that is addressing the needs of the tier 2 and tier 3 students. For science, the state assessment that we give is NGSS. There is no federally required assessment for science. So the tier 1 product that we use for science, K-12, we use Discovery Education. And Discovery Education has 2 components. So when you hear parents or students or teachers discuss it, you may hear them say science textbook, or you may hear them say mystery science. Either one of those things is Discovery Education. There are 2 different platforms within Discovery Education that teachers have access to. And that's important because they will have to adjust to meet the demands of the unit assessment.
one or the other won't meet the demands of the unit assessments that they take. So that's what we use for science. For social studies, when I arrived, we didn't have anything for social studies. We now have in grades K through 6, we have iExcel, and the company was kind enough to cut on all the subject areas in iExcel when we purchased it for social studies. So teachers can also use iExcel as a supplemental resource for math, ELA, and science, but it is not their primary resource for those things. And then in grades 7 through 12, we had a consultant write curriculum for grades 7 through 12 so that the curriculum could be semester-based, because in grades 9 through 12, we do semester-based courses. They take a new course each semester, and there is no other vendor that was willing to give a semester-based curriculum. So this curriculum was written specifically for Bridgeport because of the semester-based courses. For visual and performing arts, Dr. Sarah Jane Henry is the author of that curriculum. So she writes it for art, she writes it for theater, she writes it for music, but she writes it for all of visual and performing arts. She is a department of one person, Dr. Sarah Jane Henry. So she has to do all of that on her own. She now has an academic advisory council that is made up of anywhere from 15 to 18 people currently. And they will support her with reviewing the curriculum documents before those documents are published. And she had her first meeting with them today and received lots of feedback from them. I was able to pop into that meeting for about 5 minutes before I went into a different subject area's academic advisory council meeting. We do have some schools that are implementing components of MTSS. And so I am currently working with the leaders of those schools to review their systems, to revitalize the MTSS system here in Bridgeport. It is my understanding that we had an MTSS process pre-COVID, but then after COVID, we never picked that process back up. And we are required to have an MTSS or RTI process. But we will have to use components of several campuses to create a district process, because there is currently not a district process for academics in place. We're also looking at programs to house those plans in, because you have to have a place to put the plans once the plans are created. And so one of the executive directors, she has scheduled some time for me to visit with CT SEDS, because they have an MTSS platform. And then we use Power Schools as our student information system. And Power Schools also has a platform for MTSS. So I'll be looking at both of those companies and potentially taking them before the Academic Advisory Council for them to also review before we determine which one we're going to utilize. The next thing that we talked about, Jennifer and I talked, Jennifer talked about in the meeting with one another, is this idea that we're asking teachers to deliver a scripted curriculum. And that's a myth, that the curriculum is not scripted. Every campus should be engaging in intellectual prep at some point during the week. And intellectual prep is like It's like basketball practice, football practice, baseball practice. Every coach has plays in a playbook. And before game day, the players practice running those plays so that on game day, they win. That's what the purpose of intellectual prep is in the instructional world. You run the plays before game day so that you can get as many students as possible to master the curriculum before you teach it or when you teach it the first time. But in that planning time or preparation time, they should be anticipating the things that students are going to struggle with. They should also be talking about how they're going to activate prior knowledge. And then they should be talking about how they're going to adjust the instructional resource based on the students that they service. So I'm going to give you one quick example. And Portia, I love you, but you're the only one I did it with. So I'm going to use your example again. Portia is the elementary science director. And in a coaching conversation, Portia and we reviewed an assessment for 5th grade science from Discovery Education. The assessment had 12 questions on it. 6 of the 12 questions had to do with photosynthesis. So we knew from looking at the assessment before any instruction ever occurred that in order for kids to be successful on the test, they're really going to have to understand photosynthesis because 6 out of the 12 questions they're going to engage with are on photosynthesis. So then Portia and I went over into Discovery Education and we looked at the activities for that unit. And in Discovery Education, there were 18 different activities for this unit. Only one of the 18 activities was on photosynthesis. So if the teachers don't engage in intellectual prep and they attempt to just pick up Discovery Education and teach the activities in order of 1 to 18, when the kids take the test, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to do well because they haven't had very much exposure to the one thing that is tested heavily on this particular unit assessment. So as a teacher, I have to plan, how am I going to adjust? Which of the 18 activities am I going to take out so that I have greater opportunities to cover photosynthesis before my students are tested on photosynthesis? Which is why I say that the teachers have to use science textbook and history science. Because where textbook only had one activity in it, mystery science may have more activities for photosynthesis. They have become IXL masters overnight. So they can also go into IXL and see what IXL has regarding photosynthesis. And they can replace some of those textbook activities with activities from IXL. They can also look at Actively Learn, which is aligned to science as well. And they can see what they want to pull out of Actively Learn to address photosynthesis. There's only one place they can't go that we really love to go to. And that one place is Teachers Pay Teachers. And let me tell you why they cannot go to Teachers Pay Teachers. I love my father to death. I am a daddy's girl. But he is a musician who barely finished high school. And if he wants to make some extra money, he can become a vendor on Teachers Pay Teachers and sell you some science stuff. Sell you some science stuff. Sell me some science stuff. And guess what? I might actually buy his science stuff because it's pretty, it's colorful. It looks like something my kids might have fun with. But I just told you my dad barely finished high school. So we all know I probably shouldn't be buying science stuff from my musical father. Do we agree to that? But we love to go to teachers pay teachers to get things. And that is the one place that teachers are being told no to all across the district. And the reason they're being told no is because of what I just described to you. Anyone can become a vendor on that website and sell you things. Anybody can be. That is not vetted by anybody. I can go on there, create an account, and sell you anything I think that you are willing to buy. So the fact that people believe we're using a scripted curriculum, that's a myth. Teachers are going to have to adjust the activities to meet the demands of their students and the standards. If they try to treat the products as a script, inevitably, they're not going to give students what they need because those products were created like humans. They were created by humans like you and I. Therefore, there is room for error in those products. I don't think anybody intentionally only put one activity to address photosynthesis in the product. But the reality is that 1 out of 18 of the activities talked about 6 of the questions on a 12-question assessment. The other thing that Jennifer and I discussed were the commissioner network visits. So we have 2 schools in the district who are commissioner network schools. Those are Columbus and Barnum. And the state comes bi-monthly to walk those schools. We don't get to dictate the process we use in those commissioner network visits. The state dictates the process that we go through during those visits. We simply create the schedule to tell them what classrooms we're going to take them to. So the last commissioner network visit was on October the 1st. And Jennifer wanted me to share with you what came out of those visits. Out of respect for the campuses, I'm not going to share which strengths came from what campus and what growth came from what campus. I'm going to just tell you overall what the strengths and the growth areas were. So the first strength was that there was curricular implementation and task design was rated as a 3 in most classrooms. And combined, I want to say we went to about 7 or 8 different classrooms, 4 in one building, 4 in the other building. So the task design, what they were asking students to participate in, was considered to be proficient in most classrooms. Curricular tasks in 4 out of 5 classrooms were aligned to the posted learning target or objectives. And that's important because the standards drive what we teach. We don't get to pick what we teach. Connecticut has standards. We use Common Core standards here. It's our job to teach those Common Core standards. So in 4 out of 5 classrooms, we were teaching the standards. The classroom environments in every class were set up with desks and structures to encourage students to engage in discourse. So the structure in the room would allow Jennifer to talk to each other at some point during the lesson. Some of the growth areas were that the questions observed were mostly DOK 1. So meaning they were just baseline questions. They weren't high-level questions. They weren't middle of the road questions. They were baseline questions. We call those recall and retell. The state indicates that teachers should be asking deeper thinking questions as follow-ups to recall and retell that allow students opportunities to explain and work through their thinking. And the other growth that came out of the state visit was that there were multiple missed opportunities for student discourse. So even though the desks are arranged in a way that will allow Jennifer and Jennifer to talk to each other, we are not providing the opportunities for Jennifer and Jennifer to talk to each other, which is important for multilingual learners. Because remember, on their Lost Links test, they're going to be assessed on listening and speaking. So they have to be given the opportunity to practice that listening and speaking inside of the classroom if they're going to perform well on Lost Links. And they said there was little engagement in learning. Teachers should be intentionally planning for discourse opportunities when designing tasks for student learning. So that was all Jennifer and Jennifer talked about this month. We also talked about academic advisory, and I let her know that I had established councils for every subject area, and we'll be meeting with those councils once monthly. The greatest thing that came out of the meetings today was appreciation for the process and the opportunity. Teachers in every content area for every grade span were very grateful for the opportunity to give us feedback and to hear, what their concerns were and those things that they were happy about. So they were very appreciative for that. The the trending growth that came out of those meetings was pacing. They want more time to cover the material. That is something that the Division of Academics and I have already talked about. So throughout each quarter, they'll be building in flex days where teachers can review content that they previously taught, or they can extend content that they're teaching. We're calling those kind of like teacher choice days. Within reason, it can't be a teacher paid teacher day, but a teacher choice day. So we will be adjusting the pacing calendars to give them greater flex days, but we are required to make sure that students are exposed to all of the grade level standards by the end of the school year. So we can't give them 20 flex days every quarter, because then we would not cover all of the material by the end of the year. But there is an opportunity for us to give them a greater number of flex days or teacher choice days each quarter. And that's all I got.
Can I ask about the academic councils? How did you come up with, how many are in each subject areas? That's the word. And who selected the teacher?
So they're broken into elementary mathematics, secondary mathematics, elementary ELA, secondary ELA, elementary science, secondary science. We only have one person for pre-K. That's Lindsay Davis. She's a team of 3. She has 2 coordinators who work with her. So we only have one council for pre-K. We have one council for multilingual learners, and then we have one council for visual and performing arts. So every principal was asked to fill out a form where they gave us a teacher's name and email address that would serve in that capacity. Principals were encouraged to allow their staff to nominate and vote on who that person was going to be. But I cannot promise you that that's the process that was used in every building, because that was the principal's decision. The only request I had was for principals to fill out the form and give me a representative for their campus for each of the content areas.
And as for the intellectual prep, they need planning time. So what is the district doing to incorporate more planning time so that they have the opportunity to get that done?
Well, we produced a schedule that gave people planning time every day. That schedule was not so popular. So we gave building leaders the opportunity to go back and adjust the schedule. Some principals kept that time and they have that time every day. Some principals changed that to one time per week for 25 minutes. Some people don't have any time. They only have their BEA contractual time, but they don't have any planning or preparation time per se. Some campuses did 2 days a week for an hour each. And some campuses did 3 days a week. So we have a number of variations that exist for intellectual prep, but the directors have created a schedule where they'll be going out to support whatever time teachers are given to engage in the preparation process. We can't give you support if you don't have the time in your day. But if the time was put in the schedule, then the directors have built a schedule where they'll be floating around to the different campuses supporting that intellectual prep time.
Ms. Medina?
When you were assessing the two schools, I think it was Columbus
And Barnum.
And Barnum, you said you didn't want to talk about which individual, but you said it rated 3. It rated it 3. And 3 out of 3 out of 4. Thank you. I didn't know what that did. Could have been out of 20 out of it rated it 3. I'm like, okay. And then you said actually one particular one, 4 out of the 5 were teaching on that standard. Did we make that already, that correction? To make sure 5 out of 5? Okay, good.
So the director has been, I go with Marge Hughes, who is the executive director for those 2 schools. I accompany her on all of those visits because it drives the support that I deploy to that campus. So I've already deployed support there to support that teacher with A, getting back on pace, and B, planning to make sure that you teach the standard so that when the state comes back next time, we don't have the same issue. And we will be inviting 2 board members. We can't take all of you, it'll be a quorum, but
It won't be a quorum.
But we're gonna invite 2 of you to go with us when the state comes back next time. We're still working on solidifying the date for the next visit, but I know that between the 9 of you, you'll work out which 2 are going to accompany us on that. We will need to know so that we can let the state know that we do have these 2 board members that will be joining us on those visits.
And the other one that you mentioned was kind of interesting for me, that, there was little engagement in thing. Do we have a kind of like how to have them pivot to make sure that is applied in each of those classrooms? That I think for me it was easy. I can go over there and do it tomorrow. Have fun with them. I love that kind of stuff. I built it through bus safety for over 12 years that I taught the district pre-K to 3rd, 4th grade when we were allowed to go into the classrooms. So is that being addressed already as far as things? I know some of them have that from the front, and sometimes they have like that circle thing. So I think that would be.
So the directors have been creating what we call micro PDs. So they're about professional learning. It's like professional learning in 20 minutes. So it's a 20-minute video where you can learn how to do a turn and talk, or you can learn how to do a Socratic seminar. So based on what we're seeing for each of the respective content areas, directors have been producing micro PDs. Michelle, Dr. Zanowskis, who is secondary ELA, she's done one on Turn and Talk. And then Dr. Bernadette Kingsley, who's secondary for science. She's done one on having group discussions and also engaging the students after you show them a video, and providing support so that students can engage in those discussions. Because we know that our multilingual learners either need paragraph frames or sentence starters to engage in discussions with their peers.
Question to each other. We used to do it by just answering each other's questions, like correcting tests together, be able to date. What did you get for that answer? It's matching. That's all well, the only other question which I posted earlier, there was no documents for this thing. Can you send us that? You sent a lot.
I can't, I have to.
I'm watching, she did that all.
I hear you, but there's nothing in here that was.
I can take it for you and send you something. I did it all from here. But I have to ask the state, can I send you the commissioner network notes? So Margie and I'll check with
Outside
them
of that,
on that, but,
And anything else, whenever possible. Yeah.
No problem.
and I think Benny.
Let me go, Mr. Woodson, if you have anything, and then I'll go to Mr. Benham.
Yes, hello, Dr. Murchison. About a month back, remember we had a conversation about a teacher that was having a kind of an issue with the scheduling. Did you get a chance to speak with her?
Yes, and I did invite that teacher to come and meet with me, or I could come and meet with them. The teacher did decline that. But like I said, we are adjusting the pacing calendars for the second quarter to provide teachers with greater numbers of flex days within reason, so that there is more time to cover the curriculum.
So you think the issue was resolved, or you think it's still
Yes, I did follow back up with her, but I did not hear anything back. So I've sent her 3 correspondences. She denied the request to meet once and then did not respond to the other 2.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Benham?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Paris. Hello, Ms. Murchison. I have 2 questions and 1 comment. First one, what is the high school assessment? It is the SAT, and what grade level do we use it for?
Yeah, so we take the SAT, they actually 10th, so 12th and 11th grade will be taking the SAT and PSAT on Friday. And then the 9th and 10th and 8th, and then 11th again, we'll take it again in the springtime.
And also, what do we use for grade 9 and 10 to see the student grow?
For grades 9 and 10 for math, we use NWEA. For ELA, we use Reading Plus.
Okay. And also, on your report, I don't see in our package, everything you say, we don't receive nothing. But
Yes, I did all of that from my head, just based off of the notes that Jennifer sent from our meeting. But I've promised Mr. Medina that I will type something tomorrow and I'll get it out to you guys.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. No more questions.
Mr. Collins?
Yes, ma'am. Couple of days. I've been doing school walkthroughs, facilities plan, and I've been looking, so this is not something I've been told. This is basically something I've been witnessing. We may not have a scripted curriculum per se. We do have a lot of synchronization going on in the schools. I've seen arrows pointing to curriculum binders, and each time I popped it open, pointing to the same spot. I'm looking in classroom student learning objectives, 12th grade. They've got the same exact student learning objectives. I've been in schools looking at the schedule on the door. At 10:05, the entire classroom comes out to go to the bathroom. What the heck is going on? This is how does a teacher differentiate if they got the same exact learning objective every day, the same exact spot in the binder that they put in there, so when somebody comes to evaluate them, they can see where they're up to and what's the consequences if they're not up to that particular point in the binder. I mean, that seems kind of scripted to me. If not scripted, synchronized. I mean, for God's sakes, we got the kids urinating at the same time in some of the schools that I've seen, and that's kind of counterintuitive. That the whole class, if only 2 kids in the class got to use the restroom, the whole class is leaving the classroom, losing 15, 20 minutes of instruction time. We're already in a deficit. Why must it be synchronized in this way? It just doesn't make sense to me for that purpose.
Can I speak to that before you add
Yes.
something, and then I have to try to remember?
Thank you.
The synchronized void opportunities, that doesn't have anything to do with the Division of Academics. That's a campus-based decision. What you're referring to is class schedules. So each leader makes those class schedules. And so that's a leader decision to synchronize the opportunities to void. There could be valid reasons for why everybody is going at the same time. I don't know. What I do know is that, you know, there are 39 campuses in the district and they have different needs. So the fact that a building leader created that class schedule, we would need to dive deeper with that building leader about why they created a class schedule where everyone is going to the restroom, as you say, at the same time. So that's a discussion to have with the building leader. As far as the learning targets being the same in the 12th grade class, in all 12th grade classrooms, learning targets are defined by the standards and they're Common Core state standards. They're not Common Core Bridgeport standards. They're not Common Core Shelton standards. They're Common Core state standards. And the learning targets come straight from those standards. So they're gonna be the same in every classroom because at that grade level and content area, they're required to teach, according to Connecticut, the same standard. So the learning targets are going to be synchronized. As far as them all being at the same, in the same place at the same time, PJ can speak to the mobility rate in Bridgeport. And the reason why we have to be synchronized when we provide instruction. Because at any given moment in time, a student can leave Bassett and go to Central. And a student can leave Central and go to Harding, or vice versa. And if we're all teaching units at different points in times, and due to their families' living dynamics, they need to move frequently, that student could potentially be missing content because we're not providing instruction in a synchronized manner. I can tell you that my division, nor I, nor the executive directors have been told to penalize any leader or any teacher for not teaching the same exact thing on the same exact day. But what we can't do is be 20 and 30 days behind. Because by law, we're required to expose the students to all of the grade level content by the end of the year. And if you run at a steady pace of always being 20 to 30 days behind, you will not teach all of the content by the end of the year. Mr. Plank, go get it. I said it. So go get it.
We'll go together.
Okay. You drop something right now. Then you write mistakes. Anyway, so he will tell you that Bridgeport historically has not covered all of the material by the time that the students sit for the SBAC results. Sit for the test. So much of the results can be attributed to the fact that students have not even seen all of the material that they've been tested on. That's not a state issue. That's a Bridgeport issue. So we have to make sure that we provide a guide to educators for pacing to make sure that students have the opportunity to be exposed to all of the curriculum by the end of the school year.
Because you also mentioned differentiation. I think that also happens in intervention times. And I think that's what you're trying to do with the flex period is, you know, some classes are gonna need more work in the photosynthesis or something else, right? So I think that's where it should differ by class because each classroom needs are different.
But we've got some areas and some schools with different deficits that are more global in nature. For instance, like say if you got the first grade class who can't identify their letters or their phonics, they can't move on to that next step until that one is achieved. As that could possibly take longer than the 20, 30 days to get them up to one, especially when we got some grades 3 or 4, 2 or 3 grades behind.
So Mr. Sokolovic, I'm going to respectfully disagree with you
That's fine.
because we no longer use an intervention or remediation model. Statewide, we're required to use an acceleration model, which means that even if you have a 5th grader who is performing at a pre-K level, by law, you're still required to provide that child with 5th grade curriculum. Now you have to provide scaffolds and supports to that student so that they can access the 5th grade curriculum, but we are still required by law to provide that student with a 5th grade with access to 5th grade curriculum. One of the requests that we made of all campuses was that they have what we call win blocks, and that's what I need. But what this Jennifer needs and what this Jennifer needs may not be the same time. And we requested, we strongly encouraged building principals to set aside 30 minutes of win time for math and a separate 30 minutes of win time for ELA. And that is a standard time at which you can work on closing those gaps. You can work on taking the student from a pre-K level, hopefully to a 3rd grade level by the end of the school year. So that next year they're not 6 grade levels behind, they're only 3 grade levels behind. Does that make sense what I'm saying? But that is why the MTSS process is so important. That is why we are going to be asking campuses to use a systematic MTSS process. I can promise you they'll have a voice in the creation of that process, but they're all going to be expected to implement that process with fidelity once we have agreed on what the process is going to be. Because that is the only way we're going to slow down the rate at which we're identifying students for special education. Is that we have to have a system for identifying what needs students have, and then we have to have a system for addressing those needs while providing the child with access to grade level curriculum. So I'm not going to tell you every campus has a math and an ELA win block, because we told them that that was strongly preferred and strongly encouraged. We didn't tell anybody that that was mandatory. Now, we did present a schedule originally when that opportunity existed, but that schedule was not popular and we gave choice back to the campuses. Some campuses chose to keep the math and ELA win block. Some did not.
I got a follow-up question, basically a request for data. How many students do we retain? I mean, if we got students 3 or 4 grade levels behind and they're getting passed along, perhaps they'll be better addressed at the level that they're at. I don't know, just throwing that out there. It's a longer discussion.
So I will work with my friend PJ to get you the retention. The retention data, that might be something that we want to review it in an executive session. Perhaps y'all could make a motion to go into executive session to review such a thing. that may not be something that we want to advertise in a public forum.
All right, two more questions. Sorry. Commissioner, you mentioned the Commissioners Network. You mentioned two schools. They have what's Bassick stand in the Commissioner Network application process?
I'll let, March Hughes talk about that.
Bassick had applied 2 years ago for the Commissioner Network. They weren't ready to move forward. They went into a year 2 planning process, at which point the superintendent had withdrawn the application. And it's my understanding, in talking to Principal Padro, that she would like to move forward with it. And it is our intention, at least at this point, that we will put in for this upcoming year an interest. We have to start the process over again, but put in an interest to apply again. We feel that we're in a better spot. Principal Padro was at Hartford High School. She was a former Commissioner Network principal, and feels that she's ready to take on this work.
Any particular reason the superintendent called for the withdrawal of the application?
The application wasn't at the
submitted?
time I'm talking, at the time I was on the state side, and at the time the application needed more work. And we had said, this application needs more work, and the superintendent had come back saying, we're not ready to move forward with it, to move forward.
And, right, can we find out what the deficits were, make sure those are covered?
You bet.
So we can.
You bet. I'm on this side of the table now.
And does Bassick have a functioning school governance council, which is part of the process?
She is working on rejuvenating that. There was one in place, and she's working on that and the PAC.
Last question in regards to.
PTSO. PTSO for
Yeah.
Bass, right?
I
PTSO.
got you first.
Yeah. Way important.
Yeah, final question. This is basically an observation about the Reading Plus and all. We got a lot of programs, and it seems we're trying to make sure we utilize them all. I don't know if this is a global thing or it just happened to my son, and I came across it in the conversation with my son. I asked him about his pre-calculus class. He said, "Oh, we did Reading Plus today. We did the assessment." Why is an assessment for Reading Plus taking place in mathematics classroom? I don't know if it's global. I usually don't bring stuff up that happens in my son's school, but this is something that could possibly have global implications about throughout the district. If we're trying to just get the results, get the tests, and to show that we're using the programs, is the data that we're getting that on the user is really valuable. Oh, we use Reading Plus, and this child got 80. This child lost out on 40 minutes of mathematics.
That's a good question. That's again, a campus-based decision. So each time we take either a state or federally mandated assessment, the campuses are charged with creating a testing plan. Each campus has a testing coordinator that works with the principal to create that plan. So that was a campus-based decision to use the math class to take the reading assessment. Again, there could be a reason for that. I would have to have a conversation with the building leader to determine what the reason was for that. But that wasn't a global decision to take a reading test in a math classroom. People were encouraged to do it in the ELA or in the case of high school in a humanities classroom.
But then, I'm sorry, but then what happens to the humanities curriculum for that day? I mean, is the point just to get this test done to utilize it, or is it like, I mean, because we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul, basically curriculum wise.
Well, we have to give the assessment and we have to use the data to drive what happens in that win time. So we adjust the pacing calendars to take into account the days that we're going to be giving a state or federally required assessment. The directors can attest that when they were given the template for the pacing calendars, it already had all the days where we didn't have school, where we had one session PD days, where we were gonna be given a state or a federal assessment. So all of that was built into it before we ever started putting the curriculum down on the pacing calendar. So we take into consideration when planning the curriculum, when we're going to give those assessments.
Yeah, the reason I'm so harping on this is because all the curriculum is definitely going, especially with mathematics, that's the universal language. But if we're basically just testing and making sure this, I mean, the literacy test should be taken during literacy class.
And we agree with that.
And taken at a time, not taken from the other disciplines.
But you have to remember that in high school, and we had this conversation at the end of last school year. You have to remember that in high school, we're on a semester-based scheduling. And kids don't take English every semester. So there could be some kids that had to take, and that's why I said I would have to talk to the building leader. There could be some kids that had to take that test in pre-cal because they're not enrolled in an English class this semester. That's why I said we leave the testing plan up to the building leader's discretion. But if that's something you want me to look at, I can definitely have a discussion to figure out why that was done.
Not so much on an individual level. Like I said, my wife handles the micro, I handle the macro. I just thought might be something that is addressed on a global level. Thank you.
You want
You want to ask?
No,
I just have a very small question, but I think it's not, you keep on seeing the word building leader and then in the same paragraph using the word principal. And I'm wondering, are those the same two entities? Okay, you just use both words and I'm like, well, who's the building? And then you use the word principal, I'm like, hey, you just said building leader.
Well, just say Murchison, say principal, you confuse me.
Come on. Hey, you want to make sure exactly.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Murchison.
Yes.
We're gonna move on to the pre-K presentation. On the early childhood.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lindsay Davis. I'm the Director of Early Childhood. And I'm here tonight to present to you an overview of the Early Childhood Department and the programs that we have to offer throughout the Bridgeport Public Schools. Tonight, I'm going to share with you a program overview, a class overview, some of our goals and priorities, and how those relate to our early learning standards. I'll talk about staff and staff retention. I'll also touch on fees, and I'll give you a little bit of an insight to our Kickoff to Kindergarten program that we had this summer in the month of July. So first, the program overview is we have 23 school sites that have pre-K3 and pre-K4 programs within them. There are 20 school readiness sites, which means that those classrooms are funded by the School Readiness Grant. 4 Smart Start sites that are funded by the Smart Start grant. And then we have 6 Magnet Grant classes, and those are all at Discovery School. There are a total of 37 pre-K classes, and that equals about 689 seats that we have available throughout our Bridgeport Public Schools for 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. And you can see on this slide that I've outlined the schools in which we have our pre-K programs. Discovery is a lottery-based program. So parents do need to apply for those programs through the lottery process. That's the only school that pre-K is lottery based. Our other magnet schools like High Horizons Magnet, Park City Magnet, Classical Studies Magnet, those are first come, first served with enrollment. And if families want to enroll their child or go through the magnet process for those schools, they do that in kindergarten. So the other magnet schools are not lottery based for pre-K. Currently, this number changes every day, and data management can back me up on this one. We have 12 full day seats for pre-K4. We are fully enrolled for pre-K3. We do not have any remaining seats for full day pre-K3 in the city right now. But we do have 12 full-day seats for pre-K 4. There are 27 part-day seats at St. Skane School. And recently, I collaborated with the communications department to develop a plan and a communication plan and a flyer that actually got sent out on Monday via Parent Square that gives some information about the program that we have at Skane School that is part day so that we can enroll those classes fully. And our goal is to do that by the end of October. There are 2 school readiness classes at Skane. So there are other classes there, but those are our grant funded classes at that site. So for our grant funded sites, we have 27 pre-K 4 classes. We have 7 pre-K 3 classes. We have 1 class that is a multi-age class that has 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds in the same classroom. And then we have, like I said, 2 classes at Skane School that are multi-age with 3- and 4-year-olds together. And those are both part-day programs as well. So we have a few goals and priorities. Our main goals are to focus on school readiness, holistic development, and family engagement. So we aim to provide a public school experience to our young learners before they get to the kindergarten age. We approach development holistically, which means that we address the physical, social, cognitive, and social emotional growth of our children within our programs. And we do that by using our Connecticut Early Learning Development Standards. And we do use, as Mrs. Murchison said, we use the World of Wonders program. And what we've done, Mrs. Murchison developed the curriculum warehouse, which you heard about tonight. And there are documents on there that align our World of Wonders teaching materials with the Connecticut Early Learning Standards so that it's very clear how those 2 things align, because World of Wonders does not do that for us. We had to do that work to make sure that it's clear how the standards align with the materials that they're using. The World of Wonders program also does integrate family engagement, and they offer opportunities for teachers to utilize their resources to develop projects and activities to engage families in their students' learning as they are engaged in our pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 programs. We do have some priorities, high quality experiences, responsive relationships, and professional development. So our programs are located, as you saw, throughout the Bridgeport Public Schools. And the aim of that, those placements are to create programs that are as accessible as possible. And while we don't have pre-K in all of our schools, we have them throughout a lot of the Bridgeport Public School sites so that families can choose sites that are close to, if not within, their neighborhood school. So they get the experience of being in school prior to kindergarten. That being said, parents can choose any pre-K site that has availability. If it's closer to childcare, if it's closer to where their job is, they can choose any of the sites to attend for pre-K. But we do find that a lot of our families choose the neighborhood school so that they're engaging in that neighborhood school so that they can build those responsive relationships with the staff in that school before they reach the kindergarten age. And professional development, that's an ongoing process. We've heard a lot about that, but it is geared and aimed to really zoom in and support the high quality instruction that we expect to see in those classrooms so that we can meet those standards, meet the developmentally appropriate practices that we have in place. And I'm going to move on to talk about a little bit about that with the standards that we address. So like I said, we use the Connecticut Early Learning Development Standards, and there are 7 domains to the standards. There's cognitive, social, emotional, physical, literacy and language, creative arts, math, science, and social studies that are integrated throughout all of our curriculum documents that are connected with the World of Wonders as well. We are NIAC accredited in all of our sites. We have 6 classrooms, actually not 6 classrooms, 6 sites that are going under reaccreditation this year. Prior to 2003, the most the district had ever gone under in 1 year was 3 sites. We went through 4 last year, and this year we're scheduled for 6, and those 6 are scheduled before the beginning of November. So we had 1 site assessment and visit today, and we have another tomorrow, and we'll have 4 more before the beginning of November for reaccreditation purposes. So staffing of our classrooms, like I said, we have 37 classrooms. So we have 37 classrooms. We have 37 certified teachers. We have 39 pre-K paras, and those paras, it is a requirement if they are hired by the Bridgeport Public Schools, they have to have 12 early childhood credits to be able to be eligible to be hired full-time. So that is an extra level of credentials that we do require of our paraprofessionals in our pre-K programs. Last year, we had 1 retirement and 1 resignation, and that led to us having 2 new teachers that are new to pre-K this year. So pre-K fees, all of our Bridgeport Public School programs for pre-K are fee-based. When families register for pre-K programs, they are asked for proof of income and their family size. And then that gets put into a calculator that's developed by the Office of Early Childhood and the State Department of Education. And that calculates the fees for each individual family. In the past, it was a range with income of what you would have to pay. Now it's calculated for each individual family based on the dollar amount that they make and their family size. And that's a calculator that comes directly from the state. And those fees are used to fund some of the operations and supplies that are needed for pre-K, such as field trips, furniture, consumables, events, committees. For our mandatory trainings, all of our staff are CPR certified and Admin of Men certified. So we have to go through that process as those certifications expire. And we have other fees that come along with pre-K, such as the NACCE accreditation and things like that. We also use it for program purposes if there are repairs that are needed, if furniture is needed to be replaced, if supplies are needed to be replaced, and just as things grow and change. We've used it for our curriculum resources such as World of Wonders and things like that. So our kickoff to kindergarten program, this year we had 4 sites. We had 4 classrooms. In 2003, we only had 2 program sites. So we were only able to provide services to 2 classrooms of students, which was about 30 students. We did partner with Carver to look for some extra funding this year so that we could expand that program. It's primarily focused on offering an opportunity for families to engage in a school-based program prior to entering kindergarten if they've had little or no experience in pre-K prior to their kindergarten year. So they have to be enrolled in kindergarten to enroll in our kickoff to kindergarten program. Partnering with Carver gave us the opportunity to increase the program from 14 days, which is what it was last year, to 19 days. So it gave us a little bit more time, and their half day, it's a half day program, but we were able to provide enrollment for approximately 50 children. We used the Bergan screener, which is an accurate, reliable, and valid method of assessment for young learners. And we saw growth in all of our students. The highest amount of growth that we saw was 45 points, and this test is out of 100 points. So we saw 45 points of growth from one of our learners. The average amount of growth was about 14 points. When the children started at the beginning of July, the average score for the pretest was 68.5. And at the end of the program, the average score for the post-test was 83.5. So we saw significant growth in our children just from engaging in these half-day programs for 19 days prior to going to kindergarten. And that is all I have for you this evening.
Any questions? Mr. Woodson, you have any questions?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Mr. Bennahan, you have questions? Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, one quick question. As far as revenue, the revenues generated from the parents' payments, I've always been aware of the grants and everything that funds the programs, but I've really been beyond my radar the parent of them. How is that received? Is it received school by school? Is it going to the general fund, the general funds? Do we know?
No, it comes to the department. So we handle the budget for that through the department. And it goes directly back into the school sites. So I kind of take into consideration what the programs need, what the teachers need, and even as I walk around, if there are programs that have maybe had the same cots for 15 years, we need to replace those cots, things like that. But like I said, they're also used for instructional materials. They've been used for playground repairs, We have to have playground assessments, things like that. So that's where those funds go to use.
And what kind of fiscal controls do we have over the money, like the parents bringing cash, checks?
So we take online payments and we take money orders.
And if I was to look at the budget, can you tell me where to find
It
it?
varies year to year. It's managed by the business office. But the funding coming in, because it varies family to family, that budget varies year to year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is one for, our representation, Dr. Henry?
What?
And I'm Sarah Jane Henry, the Director of Performing and Visual Arts. Thank you for the nice explanation earlier of some of the things I do. And thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. Okay, so I'm going to start with an overview of the staffing in our department. We currently have 51 visual arts teachers, 48 music teachers, 6 theater teachers, and this year we have 1 dance teacher. First time ever. In January 2024, we added a theater teacher to the Fairchild Wheeler campus, which was very exciting. And at the start of this academic year, we've added a music teacher to BMA, an art teacher to Fairchild Wheeler, and we are hiring for a music teacher at Fairchild Wheeler for the second semester. So we have 24 positions in the high school, and then the other 82 teachers serve our pre-K through 8th grade population. The Department of Performing and Visual Arts is organized around this mission statement. We are dedicated to providing engaging, high quality, and standards aligned arts instruction to each and every student in Bridgeport Public Schools. We strive to inspire and foster our students' love of the arts, provoking them to become citizens capable of being curators of their culture. As you know, the State Department sets the 25 credit graduation requirement. The arts falls under the humanities, and specifically, students must earn at least 1 credit in fine arts to graduate in Connecticut. So here are some details about the courses we offer. Because we are on a semester-based system, not everything is offered each semester, but these are available to kids during their time in high schools. So as you can see, we offer 15 different courses in visual arts that are designed to develop students' technical skills, creative thinking, and artistic expression. For music, we offer 10 different options to develop technical proficiency on either their chosen instrument, voice, or in digital music skills.
I point out the UConn.
Oh, that's counted. That's counted. In 2022, we brought theater to Bridgeport Public Schools. And so while it's small right now, we are looking to expand our theater course offerings at the high school.
It's in every high school right now?
Not at Bassett right now. We have a vacancy at Bassett. So we're excited. I'm excited to add that there, in addition to our standard curriculum, we do offer the 4 advanced placement or college credit level courses. And so as you can see, last year we had 97 students enroll in these courses, and we had a 94% pass rate. So all our classes and all our curriculum work are based on the national standards. The national standards are developed by the Consortium of National Arts Education Associations under the guidance of the National Committee for Standards in the Arts. So these 4 pillars that you see there go for art, music, theater, dance. They all fall under those 4 categories, or we all meet those 4 categories. So you've heard about this wonderful curriculum warehouse we have. This is an example of the Visual and Performing Arts Department. We developed all these documents over the summer under the guidance of Mrs. Murchison. And so we've updated any of the old curriculum documents to be more progressive and available now. We do report to the State Department. So EdSites released their growth report. So we have seen a marked increase in students participating in arts programs in our high schools. There is still room for growth. The state is currently at a 55% average and the target is 60. So we've got room to grow. The current so there were a couple of slides that I chose to take out because I'd rather present them as a growth opportunity after I have more time to work with others. So we'll skip over to staffing competition right now. So it's been a common theme all night about keeping staff. We are actually in pretty good shape in comparison to the rest of the state. There are currently 16 art positions available in the state on CT Read and 29 music positions available in the state. So in Bridgeport, currently we have 4 art vacancies, 5 music vacancies, and 1 theater vacancy. They are all currently covered by long-term subs. And then finally, this is a list of some of our most prevalent community partners that help bridge some of the resource gaps that we have by offering access to specialized programs, workshops, and performances that might not otherwise be available to us. For example, the Arthur Miller Foundation has been instrumental in helping us bring theatre to Bridgeport Public Schools by providing professional development and resource to the teachers. And then any questions?
Adina?
That's 13, but I have 15 questions according to this, and then.
So I'm gonna come back to you with growth ideas versus barriers.
Very much.
Can I just ask the UConn and the HCC programs,
Mhm.
those are offering
HCC is not currently being offered. It's the teacher certified at Fairchild Wheeler. We're hoping to offer it again in the spring and say the UConn course.
and they'll be getting college credits.
Correct. So they do pre-work in the fall semester to take the class in the spring.
Mr. Woodson?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Mr. Benahan?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. All these programs that you showed, just the last one, they are free for us for Bridgeport Public School, or they have a charge?
Oh, no, these are all offered during the school day to students.
But they're not charging for the department, right?
No, it's free. It's part of the public school education.
Okay, thank you. No more questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Scalvin?
Yeah, just one, about the arts, how many students we got at RCA?
Oh, great question. I don't have that.
71.
I do,
There you go.
78.
And this year they will be sending us a list of the performances and we'll advertise those through Parent Square so that we can attend the students' performances this year.
Thank you.
Any question? Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Great. Last but not least, the motion to adjourn,
Make a motion to adjourn.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Time is 7:08. Great day.
Have a good night, everyone. God bless you all.